A wise person once said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. For the season premiere of season 2, you spoke and we listened. Rather than assuming what it feels like to be a police officer, active duty, or military veteran, we invited 2 folks who walk in those shoes every day. Sit back and enjoy how they paint the untold picture of race, law, and order. Welcome to another episode of the Somebody's Son podcast, where biting your tongue is never allowed. Young men battle with the pressures of manhood every day. Each episode, we tackle topics that focus on worth, actions, and relationships. Our goal is simple: help men win the war with themselves.
Me being a single man and understanding the dynamic, my parents, they about to celebrate their 36th anniversary, but they got divorced and got back together 5 years later. So I guess depending on your situation and your household gives you the idea, probably your first idea of what a marriage is if you were brought in that household. So a lot of those, I guess you're a product of your own environment, how you've been brought up and raised and that different things. Like how do y'all develop the mindset that, hey, I'm ready to settle down with this one person?
Wow, that's only thrown to 3 of us.
Yeah. Hey.
Wow.
So I'm gonna go straight to you.
Yeah.
You gotta
let me back up
because he knew to the game, so he about to drop gems.
I got
He's new to the game,
but my man ain't played 2 quarters yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm letting the bets go first.
You know what I mean? He got double digits, but he ain't made it to halftime yet.
I dropped 15. I dropped 15.
Let me get the last part of that question. I
ain't gonna re-edit that one. When do you get to the point where you develop in your mindset that you're ready for marriage?
I'll be honest with you. When you stop looking. When I stopped looking, God put my wife in front of me. And I felt comfortable. I call my wife my superwoman. And you can tell somebody who's for you and just want that status. My wife was for me. My wife was, even with my DJ business, at one point it was just gonna be a hobby. No, she said, nah, we gonna do this. I'm like, oh, so she's serious. Like when I'm down, dealing with, some medical issues, some nights she's rubbing my back, rubbing my feet to make sure I get rest. She's down for me. If you have somebody down for you, you gotta keep that person. You gotta keep that person.
Respect.
For richer or poor, better or worse, people don't take that seriously. I take it seriously. People think, oh, it's just words. No. For better or worse, richer or poor. At the end of the day, at one point, I'm financially stable. At one point, I'm out of work, but my wife is right there. I'm holding it down, and vice versa. We hold each other down. When you have somebody to hold you down, you have to keep that person. And as long as your relationship is on the foundation of God, you can break walls. You can build walls back up. But as long as God is that foundation will never break at all. My foundation and my relationship, I can get mad, I can whatever, but I bet you I'm not leaving my wife. My wife not leaving me, but my foundation is there. My foundation is at it's on the foundation of God. So that's when I know I'm ready. When he give me my superwoman and she's down for me, because anybody else may not be down for me. They may be down for the situation. They may be down for the time. They may be down for the season. My wife right now, nah, she's down for me. So that's how I know, I got to keep that person. That's how I know I'm ready.
Oh, so you came to pod.
My man.
Yeah. Superwoman.
Oh, I don't play with my wife.
You mentioned when you stopped looking, did you notice, I don't know if you maybe reflected on it, but did you notice that the time that you were, potentially looking for somebody and then the person that you actually ended up with, that, you know, there was differences in what you were looking for to what you actually settled down with?
Oh, of course.
So that's what you're talking about, is stop looking.
Of course. I mean, I look, I'm not afraid to admit it. I may go on a dating site or something, or I may go to the bar, club. I'm looking. And then it's like, you know what? It's like God sitting back like,
Bro, what you doing?
when you going, as soon as you done, I'll step in. You done? All right, I got you. That's how I felt God was talking to me. So it's like, you know what? I can't find nobody. All right, I'm done. Oh, God, you done? Fine. Now I can bring your wife in. Stop looking. I got you. But I also gotta come in at the right time too. So my right time was when I stopped looking. Because if I keep looking for about 5 years, that's 5 years God looking like, you see what I'm saying? But as soon as I'm like, all right, I'm done, God can step in.
Right.
Give God his space to step in.
It seems like you're saying choose somebody who chooses you.
I'm choosing God to have that person for me. You see what I'm saying? Like that my wife is my superwoman. She's my greatest gift, my greatest blessing, my trophy. God already knows. It's like I say God, and I know every man.
Can you define trophy? Because there's gonna be some people that will say we objectify.
Okay, let me.
I know what your heart was, but I just want to make sure you provide context.
Okay.
You got all types of people that listen to the podcast. We love their listenership, but I do want you to speak on what you mean by trophy.
Okay. How about this? And every man is going to feel like this, and every man should feel like this, but I'm speaking of my wife. My wife is God's greatest gift. You know, he you know, as far as a diamond, gold, you know, something that, you know, what he made, like, I think my wife is the best thing ever. You know, and every man should feel that way. You know, so that's how I feel about my wife. So let me take that word out. Let me take that word out. Trophy, but
gift.
But you won though. But you won.
Look,
Talk your talk, Chris.
You got first place.
let me tell you, we ain't talking ribbon status. We talking first place of a lifetime. That's all I need. My marriage relationship race is that portion is done. Now it's my job to continue moving towards what God need me to do. Because God is saying, hey, I gave you my most precious gift.
Ooh.
What you gonna do with it? Let me ask you this.
Me?
If I gave you $1 billion in a briefcase, would you walk down the street with it?
No.
No, you
What a
would.
question.
You would, right?
It depends on where I'm at. Yeah.
Depending on where you get it to. If you give it to me in the street, I got no option but to walk down the street.
No, I'm just saying. I give it to you in the bank. You just gonna walk down the street with it?
No.
No, I'm like,
Why is that?
Man, it's dangerous doing that.
Oh, let me ask you this: a diamond that's worth that's rare. Are you gonna walk down the street with it like?
Nah, I'm tucking that.
You tucking that?
I'm tucking that, yeah.
Put in a little pocket.
Yeah.
The pocket
gotta fish out
inside
like
the
that.
pocket.
Yeah.
That's inside the jeans.
That's how I see my wife. I'm not taking a chance because that's what God gave me. So just how you feel about that $1 billion briefcase or that diamond, well, I'm not playing with my wife. I'm tucking that away, putting it in a small pocket. I'm holding that.
Little pocket.
So are you saying, again, I did not know we was gonna go down this path.
I'm sorry.
No. There's no bro, this happens all the time. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is a good thing.
I'm glad we're here.
Are you saying that there's guys that are loose with their blessings or loose with their gifts?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Where's my camera?
Of course.
Why we coming like that now?
Of course.
I didn't know he was gonna go there.
Of course.
I mean, since you gonna go there.
Of course. Of course.
Pull these ankles out.
Of course. I mean, let me tell you. There's guys who get more. There's guys who get more upset that you stepped on their J's than you do with they blessings from God. Like, if I'm ready to fight you over some J's, now I know for me. Let me tell you, I got my wife, my daughter. I don't play with them, and they know I don't play with them because I say y'all are my biggest blessings. My greatest blessings. I don't play with y'all. It's a sense of crazy and a sense of blackout crazy. You know, for them, I go blackout crazy. I don't play with them because it's like God gave me this, and for me, I go back to God and say, you know, can I trust you with it? Of course, you can trust me with this, because I don't want to throw that diamond in the air, and because it may slip through my hands and it may break.
Yeah, risky.
Because of our friendship, I also recognize that you know what it feels like not to have them. And I think a lot of guys have gotten comfortable with they forgot what it feels like not to have those types of gifts or blessings, like a family. And a family is priceless. I as a man who actually who started his family rather young, and I would actually, if I'm being completely honest with y'all, we keep it 100 on the pod. I think I was probably irresponsible with my family. Mainly because I don't want dudes to be able to use the excuse of not having any example, but like part of the appreciation of having something you didn't have, for guys like us, we had to learn that. We had to learn that.
Still learning.
That's why I say I jokingly talk about like with Chris. The beauty about Chris is Chris may be in the first quarter, but my man putting up numbers in marriage that most dudes who've been playing for 5-6 years, they haven't put those numbers up. They don't appreciate their wives the same way. They are very irresponsible, using your analogy, with their diamond. And for me, it took me a few quarters. Be honest with you, it took me a few quarters to truly appreciate what God had given me, without having that example, right? And so you learning on the fly. The beauty of it for me, though, is I get to relive being a newlywed again, or even starting a family through my mans or through you, because I get to see, y'all know mistakes of prioritizing work over family or travel over family or networking over family. So whether you had that example in your home or not, when it come to us and we had that conversation, I don't give y'all that pass because you got to see it firsthand, right? Like, that's crazy though. That's crazy you went there. For the camera, we weren't even supposed to talk about relationships today. That wasn't the segue, but I think it's interesting looking at your line of work. Both of you have you've been retired from the military and also law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
You're still active in law enforcement. And for those reasons, we've never done this on the pod, but because we appreciate our guests, that's why you're not on camera, but you know we love you.
Respect.
How do you think, as you're trying to build your families or appreciate your blessings, what toll does that take, being a person in uniform, on your family? Like, I can speak to like what it feel like being the son of military brats, but I have no clue what it feel like to actually put on a uniform and you going out into this world, which we know based on recent events and historical events, because folks like to act like this is not who our country is. Our country has been this for a while. I do think we're at a good turning point in the country, but explain to me or speak on how is that dynamic? I'll start with you. Like, is there any difficulty putting a uniform on and trying to build a family or any of those things?
I'm 7 years in now.
Okay.
In the beginning, it was something different. You know, having a daughter early, you know, understanding the sacrifice when it comes to work. The thing is, when you put that uniform on, you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for others. Obviously, I'm not doing it for the money. The money is definitely not the reason why, but it's an honorable profession. And I think what I see from it now, when I first started, is that it's not a lot of people that looks like me. And now I feel I have to use my platform to give back. So I educate those as much as I can in my profession of what I do. Because I have conversations with plenty of people all the time. Me and Chris, we talk all the time in reference to it because he'll say, hey, aren't you part of a union? And the law enforcement group that I work for, I'm not allowed to be a part of that. So a lot of things change. A lot of people might not know these things, but I feel like I always have to speak on it because I want to make sure I let everybody know what's really going on. Not every department is the same. Just like you pay taxes differently when you go to different states and cities. So because as you see now, Texas, nobody's really wearing masks and stuff. I think the Texans opened up their stadium, sold out. So every state, every city is different. So every police department is different. Now what you see is everybody that makes those things up. So the issue that I have is disheartening. It's hard to see, and I don't want to say my people, but I'm Black, to see my people go through these things. Like I was on the lines, when they was riding and stuff like that, to see the hurt and the anger in people's eyes and stuff. I felt that. And that's something in my 7 years in law enforcement, I've never seen that before in my life. You see it on TV, you read it in the books, coming up, you hear from fellow other men or women that you talk to in law enforcement, things like, but to see it actually, it was Call of Duty. I hate to use that analogy, but it was legit, I'm hearing I don't want to say bombs going off, but flashbang grenades. Just picture yourself in that setting. You got people yelling at you, outraged because we seeing so many things happen. And it's getting to the point where that's the rhetoric now. That's the narrative that we constantly deal with. So how do I change that? What can I do to change that narrative that not all people in law enforcement are the same? Granted, it's some assholes that are out there that's messing it up for everybody. And I believe that for every job. But the thing is, I got to walk a different path compared to everybody because I know that any little thing I do is going to get blasted out of proportion.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just because of my job, but because of who I am.
Yeah. Two things. We don't typically curse on the pod, but that was a perfect time to curse. So I appreciate you for that because I can sense your frustration. But you said you had a daughter. How are you navigating being in uniform? You're on the front lines for the very first time, seeing these types of riots up front because of the state that you work in and that community, given some of the unrest there. Do you take that home? How do you navigate that? Because you still want a family. You still want to I'm sure you're not done with just your daughter, or maybe you are.
I feel as though I try to decompress with other things, like either me working out or me, because I would like to deal with real estate, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But the thing is, finding other ways to deal with the stress. I talk to a therapist. I have to. I cannot deal with the things. And I tell everybody, if you got opportunity, especially with your employer, take the opportunity to go talk to somebody. Talk to a non-biased person who doesn't know you from the next person, and they giving you the feedback of what you give them. Yeah. So it's all in what you bring to the table. My thing is you got to be open to it. You can't keep that stuff bottled in because you'll see things, you see it now as far as frustrated people acting out in stressful situations.
Yeah.
So because of that, you have to have an outlet to be able to not deal with those things. Yeah. And that's the most, in my mind, that's one of the most important things. You have to be able to talk those things out. And I know it's hard to deal with people who don't necessarily come from those backgrounds, especially your significant other. And what I've known with law enforcement, understanding the officer is dealing with the most, but the significant other deals with as well. And I guess that ties in back to we talk about how you talking about that's your gift and blessings, but she or he has to be able to understand what you're going through. You have to be open to let your significant other know in reference to, hey, these are the things I'm going through. I'm hurting. Yeah. I need you to be there for me. Mm-hmm. Even that's just rubbing my feet or rubbing my back or just cooking a meal for me or picking the kids up, things of that nature. I need that. I need to decompress. You have to help me. So being open-minded and as well as open communication. Yeah. I think a lot of times we lack is communication. And being able to sit down and have this conversation helps with that communication because a lot of times people don't know how to deal with people in these situations. I really don't talk about politics, things of that nature, but because it turns people different ways, but understanding that everybody come from different backgrounds. And my thing is love is the key. That we still got love in one another. And back to what we're talking about as far as how do I feel about putting this uniform on, I protect the people that I don't even know. I'm setting a complete stranger. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, it's not the money that does it. It's just me being an honorable person that I still want love to prevail. I still want us to all be okay in this world. I still want positive nature and using my platform to push that out there as much as I can. Do I know you from the next one? No, I don't, but you can get a feel for the energy. Just like when I walked in and started talking to my mans here, I don't know for the next one, but I'm loving the energy.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
This is a real honest question. Is it worth it? being a black man as a police officer?
Yes, because there's not enough of us in color in that role. And my thing is, a lot of young males. How many male teachers that have y'all had growing up in school?
Not a lot.
Right. So because of that,
Think about that.
seeing men, especially black men, seeing them in roles that you weren't used to growing up changes your idea. I can do that. I know that you hear the whole thing as far as like you could be the president of the United States, stuff like that. But if you don't see it, you don't internalize the thing that you can do it yourself. So I didn't put a uniform on for me. I put it on for others.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
So when they see me, they say, "Oh, I don't like law enforcement, but I like you because of what you do for me." So initially,
Wow.
in the beginning, did I know what I was getting myself into? No, I did not. But now I see the impact that I have as far as dealing with juveniles, as far as dealing with adults. Juveniles are a little bit more easy to tame because they can kind of figure out what life, and you can get them life experience as far as like, this is what I went through. I don't want you to be like me. Don't mess up. And I think we're a little bit older. So I think we all been in OG roles at some point in time. Like we see a little boy doing something like, hey, but you can still do it too.
No, I am.
Respect.
A mentor. Yeah.
So my thing is like, anytime we get an opportunity to speak to others as far as what we've been through, we all take that advantage. Even like a kid in the grocery store or something like that, just talking to them. And now I feel like now I'm obligated because I have to live for others and not for myself.
Wow.
And that's even including my family as well, because my daughter see the things that I do. Even if say for instance, I pick up a sheet of paper and I drop something on the ground, she see that I'm loitering and stuff like that. She probably gonna think that's okay. Maybe that's a minor example, but she think that she can't be held accountable for just something as small as that. So maybe she'll grow up thinking, hey, I can do those things without consequence.
You know what the beautiful thing about your position is, you mentioned influencing people, especially young people, to know that there are people that look like them that are in the positions. I don't necessarily think that, kids may not want to be police officers. I think the big thing as well, and you probably already know this, is that they feel like there's someone on the inside who's looking out for them.
Correct.
In their best interests, right? So we had a dude named Kamal on the pod, and he was saying somewhat of the same things. He was like, I went to, he's on a fire truck, a lieutenant, and he was saying, man, I went to this house and this stuck with me. He was like, this old black man saw me get off the truck and was like, what? Wow.
Yeah.
A black dude is doing things that I didn't have the opportunity to do maybe 50 years ago. You know what I mean? But I think bigger than that is there's a sense among people, especially young people, where they feel like the majority of police officers are not thinking about their best interests, right? And you mentioned serving for other people. I feel like that is the difference between, I think that's why we need more, especially black men as police officers. And I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Truly, I commend you, bro.
Respect.
But do you ever get a sense of like, because we're talking about family here, you have a daughter, do you ever get a sense that like the job is dangerous?
Every day. Every day I go to work, I get shot. I can die. Every day. It don't matter. Like I can legit be sitting in a car, somebody's come up to me, let it go, and that's game over. Every day I put that uniform on, I know there's a potential.
You think about that every day?
At times, yes. Like when I first started, every day. Now, not so much, because I think I'm a little biased because of the law enforcement group that I work for, that we have a great rapport with the citizens there. Like literally, I was working the extra work another day, and maybe like 4 or 5 people just coming back to me, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. It makes me feel better as far as my job, because my thing is, I'm going to treat you like I want to be treated. I'm not going to take advantage of anybody else. Why would I do something like that? And then as well as me being a black man too, I know I have to keep the straight and narrow, because I know it's going to be extra eyes on me to make sure, hey, we're not going to let that go because of what you look like. So facing that too, like my thing is, I know everybody's watching me to be able to make sure I do what I can do and that potential. But the dangerous aspect of it, yes, every day. And that's why I try to be as positive as I can, because my thing is at any moment I can go. And I hate to be like that. And I've expressed it to my family. I remember when I first started, when I was on night shift, my mother used to always be like, hey, let me know when you make it home, please. Like just a text or call, because I used to work get off like 6, 7 in the morning, stuff like that. Let me know. Yeah. And there's been times I've been pulled over as an officer, and my daughter would be like, Daddy, I'm scared. Then it really hit. Like, cause man, my thing is like a routine traffic stop. You know, I've done it so many times, but those traffic stops and domestics are the two worst calls an officer can go to. As you see, anything routine traffic stop, we see what's going on in the world now that it escalates at like that.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about it is like you literally have seconds to make a decision that can change your life. And then I play in my mind, don't make temporary decisions. I'm saying it wrong, but permanent decisions based off temporary feelings. I want to say something along the lines of that. But my thing is you have to be mindful is chess, not checkers. My thing is, but when you're in that stressful situation, like say for instance, you're scared of a dog and you walk into the house and you're trying to get in the house, but you got your keys in your hand and you're trying to get in the door, but that dog is coming at you. You fumbling with the keys, stuff like that. Yeah. But that's something minor. But think about as far as that escalating to the point we have weapons involved. We have somebody's life involved. Because my thing is, as an officer, I never thought about it till like years later. I have the opportunity to take your freedom away. I could put you in cuffs. You can't even scratch your back because I put you in cuffs. And the power and authority that comes from that, you just can't get that to any and everybody. That's why it's a stressful situation. But you got to realize the type of person that comes to recruitment. That comes to recruiting. My man can speak on that with HR and stuff like that. And I think you did a little bit with HR as well. But you got to understand the personnel that you bring in to be able to understand that power that you have. Not everybody can have that power.
Oh my goodness.
So
go ahead.
I mean, keep going.
Just understand that process. Because my thing is like, originally, officers were dealt with like slave patrol. That's what some of the origins of that for us. My thing, I don't want to take you to jail, but my thing is you did something that you wasn't supposed to do.
Yeah.
So my thing, are some of the laws in favor? Are some of the laws right? No, they are not. But at that point, then we come to the point of education. Hey, let's go to the General Assembly. Let's go and talk to our legislators. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. And that's the point where we come in as far as, hey, this is what you can do. Everybody can lobby together, but the average person doesn't know that. They think that, hey, I just vote for the president and everything's supposed to change. No, you need to understand your local primaries.
Yeah, it sounds like, so this is transformational.
Very.
It sounds like you don't view your role as just enforcing law.
No.
And that's fundamentally different from the way we talk about law and order.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have a different mentality, which I applaud. Like I didn't know, I mean, I know you, but I haven't spent enough time talking about your occupation. So that's amazing. I want to hear you. You put the uniform on twice.
Yes.
So you've walked in similar shoes. I'm not going to say the same because you just educated me. Different departments, different states, different communities, different culture in that department. So that's different. And I should have known that. But you put the uniform twice. You started your family after you stopped wearing a uniform.
That is correct.
Do you think the dynamics would be different for you and your family had you stayed wearing a uniform and still starting a family?
Yeah, it would have been. I feel it would have been worse.
How so?
When I put on the uniform, it changed my mentality. I'm more cold. I worked in the back of the jail. 2.5 years was mentally changing for myself. I'm sorry. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
I don't say it enough. I could listen to you talk all day. I want to thank you for your service. Your perspective is awesome. People need to hear that more. So once much respect.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to dive in deeper on both subjects too, because I think, like you said, this is kind of transformational.
Yeah.
Like I learned something crazy.
Yeah.
So, please keep going.
That hit home. That was very powerful. Yeah. I just know my experience, 2.5 years in the back of the jail.
Jail beast.
Jail is a beast. I don't get a chance to go out. My 12-hour shift. I'm inside. I'm locked up myself. I had a situation. I mean, this was probably my first year. Me and the inmate got into it, and I came in the day room, and I forgot one of the veteran deputies had to pull me to the side and remind me that I had a uniform on. But in that mindset, I'm still new. I'm not gonna take no disrespect,
Yeah.
I ended up talking to that inmate later on, And I told him, I said, man, I'm kind of like you. I'm just on work release. My weekend, I go home, go to sleep, and I'm back in here with you. 12 hours, I just go home and go to sleep. I'm coming back in here. I'm not gonna treat you like no animal. Another black guy. I'm just another black guy. But I see it like myself. I'm just, when I take the uniform off, I'm just a black guy, tattoos, dreads. But when I put the uniform on, I'm not gonna treat you like no animal. Now you in here because you did something, and accountability is something we need to talk about. But I'm not gonna treat you like no animal. So, but when my time there, my mentality just got so cold.
Cold how? Speak on that a little bit, or expound on that a little bit.
Man, like sympathy, empathy is gone. I curse more, just be like more defensive.
Is that the environment? Because I see you nodding. Is that the environment?
He's in the background like a green.
You would have thought. Y'all was in very different places.
But not to cut you off, but
no, you're good,
I understand exactly where you're coming from in that, because my thing is you always have to solve everybody's problem, but who's gonna solve your problem? And you're there constantly to do everything for everybody else. It's like after a while it comes routine.
It is. Routine robot. I'm going into a day room. All I have, you talking 30 guys in a day room, and all I have who have my back is the guy buzzing me in. And I'm going in by myself to take count. I don't know what this guy over here doing in his cell. I don't know if he like me or not. I don't know if I don't know what type of mentality he has, but I'm defensive. But that's just the beginning of my issue, because that defensive mechanism, after my 12-hour shift, I go home with it. So therefore, I'm taking that defense mechanism home. I'm cold to my loved ones.
So you could take the uniform off, you could leave the environment, but the mentality is still staying with you based on the amount of time that you're spending. It sounds like you confined.
Well, because I have to go back the next day. I'm just on work release.
So I saw you nodding. Clearly you all...
Something going on.
Once again,
I thank you for your service.
Be in the background, man.
But how do we solve for that? Like in a meaningful way, like as civilians who have not put on the uniform,
Right.
How do we solve for that? Is it, because I think it's more than just Headspace or a comm app. Like how do we solve for this in a meaningful way for people in your profession?
I want to piggyback on what he said too.
Okay.
EAP. If your
Employee Assistance Program.
Yes.
Yep.
Counseling. Just having somebody to talk to is like peeling layers off. I'm not afraid to admit it. I've been in counseling since I got discharged from the military. My time at the sheriff's office, I went to EAP. There's never a time, and I'm still in counseling. There's never a time where, I'm healed, I'm good. No, because there's still some parts of that mentality that comes back, and you have to catch it. I just know for me, because I had to go back to work the next day, what's the point of, I don't have enough time to peel those layers off, because I got to get back in defensive mode. And that was just my mentality.
Therapy has come up a lot in this conversation. And in general, we need it in our community as Black people. I think we need it. Everyone needs it, but specifically for us, I think the access is not there. But more specifically in law enforcement, is this something that is mandated by the department you work for, that you're required to go to therapy? Is there any incentive or benefit that you have that encourages people to like law enforcement officers to take part in therapy, or is it something you have to do completely on your own? Like what's that dynamic, and how much, because it's such an important topic, how much of it is a requirement versus an extracurricular?
Yeah. So for the law enforcement group I work for, if you work as a detective, it's mandated. You have to go at least once a year. And you think about the detectives that either work in person, so the guys that deal with homicide, robberies, things of that nature, as well as special victims. And we all know special victims, you got to be a strong beast to deal with that, talking to a sexual offender and things of that nature. But it's offered. So the law enforcement group that I work for, they have a group that officers take on the role to help those who've gone through certain things personal. Now, say for instance, there's an incident that happens, and I hate to be so blunt with it, but kids get hit on the train. You respond to that call for service. You see body go left, legs go left, head go right. That group goes out and gets paged out to talk to those officers separately outside of what you're doing with your due diligence as far as your job. Because unfortunately, there's a job to do. Just like my man was saying, there's a job that needs to be done. I know your husband just killed himself and y'all have a 9-day-old baby, but I need to know your information. And that's what the disheartening part about the job is, the fact that you got to have that conversation and still do your job, but you just lost a loved one. You on a teacher salary. Your husband is a business owner and he just killed himself. You have a 9-day-old baby. What is me asking you what's your husband's social going to help in that situation right then and there? So because of that, you think about how that person, that officer at that point has to deal with that. I still got to write this down. I still got to check the checks and balances. I got to still document this and then go and deal with that back at home. So the program that the law enforcement group that I work for helps people. Hey, I want to reach out to you. Let's talk. And this is off the record. I'm not allowed to bring this up with nobody else. If I had this conversation with Chris, it's just Chris. I can't talk tonight about this. So I like the fact that the department that I work for does that. But like I said earlier, you can't speak for all of the departments. As you see in the world, everybody does things differently. But I have that luxury to do so. Now, the issue is as far as money and finance and things that come to that. But my thing is, and then they offer it for the spouses as well. Oh, wow. So they offer to say, hey, we have monthly, quarterly meetings. These are some of the things that we do as far as stress relievers. This is what stress is. This is what your husband or your wife is going through. So maybe you can better understand how to deal with them at home, and even offer to the kids as well. But I can't speak. I'm going to keep saying that because I think a lot of people think that it's just consistent across the board. Everything is the same. It is not. It's not the same, because I'm pretty sure it's other departments that don't even have anything like that. So automatically, if you're involved in a shooting situation, if you shoot your firearm, you off the road. You're an admin leaver. I think a lot of people don't understand that concept. How that works is you are not mentally stable to go back to work. But back before, in time, it was you shot somebody, we cleared it off. Common Fraternity said you're good to go. You going back to work. Sir, I'm not ready. Sir, you going back to work. Because at this point, it's not a day off in law enforcement. As you see, inclement weather. Oh, I work from home. You see, everybody been working from home now, not law enforcement. No, you going to work. You don't get the opportunity to take off days. I mean, sometimes now I think with the whole push with mental health, and it helps because you mentally tired. When we all work. Yeah. Everybody here has a job. So because of that, we all constantly working. We need a mental break. I think it's better now that we see it more often, but we don't understand the mental health of what it becomes as far as the things you see. And much respect to you as far as your service, because I know with military, that's a whole nother thing. Especially because with you being a military kid, I'm pretty sure it's things that happen in the household, things that your people might have seen that changes changes the narrative as far as how you start to think about different things that you go through.
Oh yeah, most certainly. I think, first of all, y'all are shedding light on a whole nother opportunity I think we have as a country, which is how do we make, you said it's different in departments, but how do we make that consistent? How do we allow men and women in uniform, whether it's military, whether it's first responders, whether it's firemen like Kamal, whether it's law enforcement like you two, how do we make that a standard practice? And I would advocate for that and have the right resources.
It makes me think of, instead of defunding the police, which is the narrative that comes out now, how do we refund the police?
That's what
we have to reallocate
the resources.
Just transfer it over.
Yeah, refund the police that's a whole nother. Yeah. When y'all hear this,
it's crazy,
bro. My man's into something. But I do want to say this though. I do want to say this real quick. We can also develop KPIs. Key performance indicators to determine which departments are doing well. It sounds like your department may be one of the top ones. And then how do we then scale that to make a consistent practice across the country? Because it sounds like these things aren't being addressed. It sounds like I don't know who the head of, is it the chief of police or is it the mayor?
Is the top dog.
So
you know, at Richmond, you have a mayor, but you have a board of supervisors.
Right.
So and I think that's going to be the problem with consistency across the states, because every jurisdiction is different. Because you got small cities like a Dinwiddie or Petersburg, different things, like they might run things differently compared to other ones. And the problem is you got a lot of egos up top, and y'all seen it. Where a lot of people is like, well, Henrico, we're the top dog, so we're gonna pay our people more than we're gonna pay somebody else, another jurisdiction, and we're gonna make sure everybody know that.
Yeah, but I agree with you. That should be a natural impediment or barrier based on being in different areas. But I think on the flip side, it should be one we can easily get past, because when there's I would venture to say, and I'm a civilian, so I can be completely off. So I defer to you two that are much wiser than I. But I would assume when tensions between communities and police escalate, all communities feel it. There were cities that people protested, and the shooting didn't happen in their community, but they wanted other cities to know, we are with you, we are supporting you through this, and enough is enough. So to your point, yeah, they may have different rules or different legal structures, different approvers, but what in this case, I'm gonna borrow from my grandmother, what's good for the goose should actually be good for the gander, right? Like we should get past those barriers. I think the other thing I want to talk about, because you just talked about like offloading. Both of you are, again, didn't know we were gonna go down this path, but you're talking about the importance of offloading some of this weight. The weight. I also recognize that you're both Black. So I know you're talking to people. I know you're in counseling. I commend you all. We need more Black men doing that. Look, real men go to counseling. Real men have this third party. It's just wise to be able to have a third party other than your wife or your pastor or whoever, your best friend, to go have an unbiased objective to offload some of that stress and get some wisdom or insight. But like as a Black man, like you can't offload your Blackness, right? Like you recognize that with the kids, like, and that's why I said you're doing more than just enforcing law or overseeing law and order. You can't offload your Blackness. So since you can't offload your Blackness, you talked about riots and seeing it up front, but being in uniform. But as a Black man, when that uniform come off, we just saw a recent case, a man in uniform get pulled over, and I'm not going to say that those officers intended to treat him like an animal, because you said when you were in the jail, you told that inmate you're not going to treat him like an animal. I'm not going to say that's their intentions, but their actions, they could care less if he had a uniform on. That's the way it looks. It looked like they can care less. They didn't see his uniform. They saw his Blackness. So since you can't offload your Blackness, how do y'all cope with those situations where you see unequal treatment? Or are you even allowed to cope? Like,
or have you seen anything, being a Black man in uniform, have you seen any situations where you've been treated differently or your skin color preceded your badge? Have you been in a situation where either you've seen that?
I said it early and I'll say it again. I'm just a Black guy, dreads, tattoos. And it's how somebody looks at that. I guess if it's a threat to somebody, it's a threat to somebody. Unfortunately, I can't wear my credentials on my sleeve. When I go outside my house, I can't wear my credentials as, I'm a veteran, or I've been in law enforcement. I can't do that.
I have a college degree. I'm a business, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot wear your credentials on your sleeve. The best thing, in my opinion, is to continue to have this conversation, have the conversation.
I agree.
Because the thing is, even if I could, I wouldn't erase my skin color. Because but my wife said too, we didn't choose. I didn't come out the womb saying, oh, I want to be Black, or I want to be white, or I want to be Asian. No. So, you're proud to be something. No, you didn't choose that. But in a sense, you still have to have this conversation, because if we're all in this basket together,
all in the same box.
If we're all in the same box, it can grow and can grow. What's gonna change is if we have empathy from other cultures. For instance, you can have a NFL. I mean, sports talk. I mean, you can have all these players, all these black, players, arguing about guaranteed contracts. But let me tell you, it's going to take a Tom Brady to put his foot down. It's going to take a Peyton Manning to put his foot down, even if he's not having issues with his contract. It's just the fact of having somebody to say, hey, I understand what you're going through. I understand. We got your back.
So you're saying, I just want to make sure we follow. You're saying there's been recent conversations around guaranteed contracts in the NFL. The same way positions that are predominantly played by African-American players, you're saying the same way they desire a guaranteed contract, it's going to take the empathy of non-black players in certain roles, say the quarterback, in order for them to see change. You're then using that as an analogy to say in law enforcement or in interactions with folks of people of color, empathy has to be demonstrated by white people to understand the plight and struggle of people of color. And then that's going to have a conversation to then help shift their realities.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
I don't need, if this guy is on the ground and somebody's on his neck and he can't breathe and he dies, I don't need to know what he did back in 2001. I don't need to know what he did when he was born in 85. Stop bringing up what he did in the past. I don't need to know that, because at that point, you're just building him up to be a criminal. This is 2021. He died in 2021. Don't talk to me about what happened in 2000. Don't talk to me about why he got suspended in school. Don't talk to me about whatever issue he had. I don't want to hear that. The man died right now.
And it's funny because it's kind of hypocritical when we look at the justice system as a whole. When you pay your debt to society, whether it be through court fees or, time served and things like that, once you completed your duty, there should be some type of redemption, or not so much a clean slate. You have a record that follows you, but you've already paid your debt to society for whatever you did in the past. Why are you still held to that even after death? Like, it's unfortunate that they bring up, to your point, they bring up the past criminal situations of a man who just died. And I agree with you, it's not relevant anymore, but this country, the media, we hang our hats on fear, right? And the same system that we make the majority of our people be victim of, the justice system, that same justice system doesn't in turn protect us. And I think that's kind of the frustration that I feel. I'm not law enforcement at all, but I have to get in my car every day and go to work. I have to drive up and down the East Coast for work. And one of the things that petrifies me when I'm on the road is I'm just black. Like I'm going into situations where I have no control over anything that happens. And just because I'm traveling for work, that's not going to save me. Just because I work for a particular company, or I have a work cell phone, whatever, none of these things are going to save me. I'm still a black guy first. How do we, from twofold question, from a citizen's perspective, as law enforcement, what can we do to kind of change that feeling that we have, the anxiety that we have? And then from the law enforcement side, what do you think can be done on the ground level, the officers that are on the road? What can be done to kind of reduce the risk of, I'm gonna say it plainly, what can police officers do to kind of, especially more so white police officers, what can they do, in you guys' opinion, to kind of de-escalate situations, or not just pinpoint black individuals? That's what it seems like. It seems like we're targeted. What can be done on the institutional side, from behind the veil of police? What can be done, in you guys' opinion, that can kind of solve for that problem, or can kind of change the perspective of your fellow white officers? What can we do about that? How can we stop this attack on the black community?
And it's not just black people. Let's clarify. It's people
everybody.
of color, because we've seen in recent cases Hispanics, Asians be targeted too.
But not so much by the police.
Not at the same rate as black people. I agree with you. But what I'm saying is when we're looking to solve for it, how do we solve for it for people of color? That's all I'm saying. Like, how do we solve for, to your point, what can be done behind the scenes, in your opinions, or because you all served and still serve, and what can be done there?
I don't think nothing changes the anxiety level. I mean, even me as an officer in law enforcement, even if I like a state trooper drive behind me, I'm in the squad car, I still get anxious.
Wow. I was gonna say, I've never felt fear like anybody. I've never felt fear like being pulled over, and I've been in a lot of stressful situations, man. But I've been in situations where I've been pulled over, and it's me, and it's of course, I wouldn't say all. A lot of my friends, I got friends of every ethnicity, but I'm in the car with 3 black kids, and you can feel anxiety in the car. You know what I mean?
But let's challenge ourselves though. I think this is what you were doing. Let's challenge that norm. You're a person who puts on the uniform, and if another person in uniform pulls up behind you, you still feel that way.
Yeah, I know I do.
How do we change that? Because one of the things I'm not content with, and I think for the 3 of us that have children, I think you all can relate. I don't want to speak for you, but I think you can relate. I am not content with giving the world that I was born into to my son and saying this is the world. I'm not content with that. I am willing to challenge basic norms of today with hopes that he will have different norms tomorrow. And so what Chris is saying, which I think he's saying is, okay, you feel that anxiety, I get it. And it may not change for our generation, but how can we contribute to changing that norm?
I honestly don't think we can because of the propaganda from the media. Every day we are seeing somebody get shot. And it's always happening, but I think it's the rhetoric that they pushing as far as that narrative. My thing is we can sit up here and build that foundation every day and all day with communication, education, but ultimately because it's the juveniles that's going to help us when we get older. And it's our job to give them as much information we can, but we know at some point in time when your son get older, he's going to do whatever he want to do. Yeah. At that point, we can train them, and I hate to say train them like they're an animal, but we can give them the tools and the gems that we
grow them.
Right.
Yeah.
And help them understand like this is life. You know, you don't have to think like that, but ultimately they're going to take their own idea as far as what it is, even with the little bit that you gave them, as well as anybody other, father or the mother, whoever else, any other influencer person that's in their lifestyle. I mean, their life, they'll take that, but ultimately, I feel like the media plays a big part of that because a lot of times, even in their headlines, you'll see white officer, black, unarmed black male with no context or anything like that. Because there's been situations where a person either came at the officer, lunged at the officer with a knife, and I think any reasonable person believe if you lunge to try to harm that officer, then that officer has a right to defend himself because the officer think I'm trying to go home to my family.
Sure.
So my thing, but we don't hear the rest of that. We just hear the headline. We clickbait.
So what you're saying is, so I think you did just propose something.
You did, yeah.
You're saying the way that we could change that norm is that the media has to stop fueling this dynamic of fear.
Correct.
That would be a contributing factor to changing that norm.
I mean, it's above my pay grade when it comes to
on the flip side too. I mean, you don't think that laying better, infrastructure for, law enforcement and people who have served, you don't think that, over the longer term that the media perspective will change? Like if you lay the infrastructure and maybe there's more funding towards police education or more funding towards, these officers getting some sort of rehabilitation or something like that, that affects how officers act in the field, right? And in turn, that changes the media's perception. Right?
I don't think so.
Because it seems like the media is reflecting, I don't know, it can go both ways, but they're sort of reflecting the fear that we feel as well. I don't know if we're being manipulated, but it sort of feels like it's twofold.
That's a serious, that's legit right there. I'm just gonna go elementary for a minute. When are we gonna see it as a problem? That's the issue. To me, that's when it's going to change.
I think the beginning of that is now, right?
If I do something to you, but I don't see it as a problem, it's going to continue to happen. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So accountability.
But I think it's more than accountability.
It has to be more.
It's before that. You can't hold somebody accountable for something they don't acknowledge.
Right.
Well, let me say that differently. I won't hold myself accountable for something I don't acknowledge. So you're saying folks have to at least acknowledge this isn't right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have, Caucasian friends, and the situation now in Caucasian friends is, well, we need to stick to the facts because such and such. Let me ask you, do you see this as a problem? Like if you don't see this as a problem, it will never change. I need you, because the thing is, I'm over here fighting, but are you going to come fight with me? Or are you going to stay back there and justify the actions of what just happened? Come fight with me. Let me know you have my back because we have a problem right here. If I spill this water, are you going to come help me clean it up? Or because if I keep spilling the water, it's going to keep spilling. It's going to keep spilling. But come over here and help me fight.
And you're saying that using that, some people don't even recognize.
Some people's like,
as a
it's not as bad as what I think. Let's hold off.
And see, and we touched on that in the past, and I don't understand it. I can see why a person would want to rely on the facts or whatever it is, the total picture. But the problem is there's a trauma that gets blasted in our face every single day. And how do you I shouldn't have to sit down and break down the entire case, start to finish on everything what happened. Another black man died at the hands of a police officer. Another one died. Everything else, let me deal with that trauma first. The first response shouldn't be, let's get all the facts. No, let's acknowledge the fact that another black man died.
No, I agree.
So once we, like to your point, once we realize that spilled water is a problem and people stop trying to insert filters or justifications on the reason why something happened, and we see the death of a black body at the hands of an institution that is just supposed to be protecting people, if we don't see that as a problem, we would never. Every other conversation doesn't make a difference, in my opinion.
I agree with that whole.
It doesn't make a difference because we always try to find a reason why. Maybe he did this, or you bring up their past situation.
I don't need to hear that.
It doesn't matter.
Man is dead.
What is the value of a black body?
Right.
What is the value of a black life? And I think that's this conversation that needs to change. And something that we talk about, a theme that we talk about a lot is proximity. And this is why I commend, and I don't have his name, with the mayor of Brooklyn Center when he acknowledged the fact that none of his officers live in the city in which they work. Maybe that's a solution. Like maybe we need to, and I think you're doing the great work of exposing young kids to see that you can be in law enforcement, and if they wear that responsibility of being bigger than a job like you do, like you wear it as a badge of honor, but also a lifestyle and opportunity to influence others. If we have more people like us involved in law enforcement, maybe we can start to create that proximity and break down those barriers.
Agreed.
But for now, it's just an us versus them. And without the education of knowing that every department operates different, without us understanding that regardless of the facts of the case, that a black body is again harmed or hurt at the hands of somebody else for minor infractions, we have to acknowledge that. And I don't think we're going to solve this question on this podcast today, but it's how do we change that? On a grander scale. The mayor of Brooklyn Center acknowledging the fact that there's no proximity, they're not neighbors with the people. How do we solve that on a national problem? Because if you look at it overseas, I was shocked to know when I lived in the UK for a bit, I was shocked to know that police officers don't have guns. Now, citizens don't have guns either, right? But if you look at America, not every citizen walks around with a gun, but every officer is equipped with some type of weapon. Yeah. Over there, it blew my mind to see how much they de-escalate situations, how much we don't have the courage here to walk around as an officer without a weapon. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. I wouldn't do it. If I was an officer here, I wouldn't do it. If I had a choice, if you want
I
to
was
be in some
gonna say.
situations, I wouldn't do it either because you never know what people have. But
Yeah.
I think there's a larger question around. I mean, there's so many issues. There's a larger question around gun reform. There's a larger question around. I don't want to say police training, but
I think all of that is encompassed in like civilian safety, right?
Yeah.
So
there's a fundamental system issue,
Right.
and it seems like there are opposing forces on either side that work against one another that only reinforces the reason why these problems continue.
But they don't have to be.
They don't have to be.
Like, and I've said this, there's entities like the NRA that based on their influence, they could actually usher in the systematic changes needed. If you really feel like your members that your members are law-abiding citizens, they are leveraging guns for sport only, that they're not shooting up. If you truly feel that way, which I think they truly feel that way, and I'm not knocking them for feeling that way, then lead on gun safety. Like lead on proximity for officers policing neighborhoods. You should live in the neighborhood or live in the community or the confines of the very place that you police. Lead on proximity. If they led on that, the game will be over. That's why I say I challenge the norm. Don't say this is how it is and it'll never change. I disagree with that. This country is rooted on, we don't like the way something is.
innovate.
We innovate.
Yep.
And so we can innovate on this issue. And I hope, like you said, we're not going to solve this issue. I do think we can positively leverage this media platform to positively contribute to the conversation.
I hope it contributes
because
to the conversation, yeah.
I don't know the CEO of the NRA. Maybe nobody's ever went to he or she and said, hey, yo, we should lead on proximity for law enforcement. We want our members to be able to retain their Second Amendment. We're going to make sure if you're not a law-abiding citizen, we never want you to have your hands on a weapon. They could lead in that regard. They really can. So I say all that to say this. I love this conversation. We have to continue to have these conversations. I want to challenge other media platforms. Openly, I challenge other media platforms to work together. This is not a us versus them situation. We're all humans. It's humanity. And once we start viewing each other as humanity, not animals, once we start viewing our occupations as honorable and creating opportunities to bridge divides that were created by people long before us, that's where the solution lies. That's where the solution lies. So I thank y'all, honestly, humbly. I didn't know we were going to go down this path, but I truly, truly appreciate all that you do, all that you will continue to do. And in the words of my friend Andy Mines, I thank you both for your service.
Real quick, I just want to let y'all know, look, y'all have a strong platform. And I want to thank y'all. Continue to build on this platform.
Yes, sir.
Continue to build what y'all doing, man. This is special. This is awesome. Everything y'all doing, man, continue to keep this on God, man, because y'all, this is awesome. Y'all have a story to tell. Y'all have an opportunity to give to everybody else. And y'all, I don't think y'all are ready for what God has in store for y'all. So I want y'all to continue to do what y'all do. So I appreciate y'all having myself here. And I'm going to continue to pray for this podcast. I'm going to continue to pray for y'all that y'all continue to open this door for conversation because it needs to be done. So,
Yes, sir.
My guy.
My man.
I appreciate you.
I'm walking off camera and dabbing him up next. Chris.
Respect.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Somebody Some podcast. We encourage you to share this episode with a friend. And remember, on this path called life, you are not alone. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
She like the way that I finessed her. She stared so long, she let